So the more I work with this, more I work with React Native, the more I find that I can have so many different topics to talk about to introduce you to React Native. So in our first lesson, actually, we talked about getting started, how to set up an environment, how to install the libraries, the APIs, and then configure your desktop in order for you to actually run your React Native application on iOS, Android, or the web. So today, we're going to be talking about some of the fundamental concepts. Before I talk about fundamental concepts, let me reiterate what React Native is. So React Native is an open source mobile application framework created by Facebook. Now, this is used or was created to help developers develop applications for Android, Android TV, iOS, macOS, tvOS, web, Windows, and so on. And it allows users to use the React Native framework along with its native platform capabilities. So today, we're going to be getting into those fundamental concepts. We're going to actually talk about the different types of components that you can add to a mobile application, or in a sense, a React Native application. And this table here is taken straight from the React Native website. And I like this table because it really highlights the differences between React Native, Android, iOS, and the web. And really, it's just essentially a new set of tags that does the same thing on different devices. So in React Native, we have the main container, so to speak, which is our view. In Android, it's a view group. iOS is a UI view. And if we think about web pages, this is essentially a non-scrolling div. So as they describe it here, it's a container that supports layouts with flexbox style, some touch handling, and accessibility controls. Now, in order to actually display some additional information like text, images, and so on, we have to use some additional tags. So in React Native, we have the text tag. And it's commonly more familiar with, if you think back to web, it's the P tag, the paragraph tag. And in Android and iOS, it's text view or UI text view. So if you notice here, really the only differences between Android and iOS, uh, except for view group, is the tags are prefixed with UI for iOS. They're pretty much the same. And then edit text is text field, UA text field for iOS view. And our text field, again, allows us to display text, styles, nested strings of text, and even handle touch events. Images, same as IMG for web, allows us to display different types of images. ScrollView is a scrolling container, so we can actually scroll and view elements that are off the page. Again, same as div. The only difference is in mobile, it's something that you can actually scroll up and down. Whereas with divs, because of a web page, the browser controls the scrolling. Then we have text input, which is the equivalent of a form input in web of input type text. And this allows the user to enter text. So these are the basic core components that we're going to look at today, along with a few additionals. But we're mainly just going to focus on the different components and how we can use them.
Yeah. Enjoy it, Dominic. Yeah. Semniga.
I muted them for you.
Thank you. All right. Now, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to go out to our desktop and we're going to create a React native project for us to start with. So we're going to use Expo again. So we'll do Expo init, and we're just going to call this one sample project or sample app. Again, we have our choices. We can do blank, blank TypeScript, tab TypeScript, minimal, or minimal TypeScript. I'm just going to keep it using blank for now. We will get into these others in future lessons. So we'll start with blank. And it only takes a few seconds to install everything and load. And what it's doing is it's installing all the JavaScript dependencies, it's building the project. If you think about Java, this is kind of similar to like a Maven install, where you use Maven to generate your projects. So it's going to pull in all your dependencies, build your project structure, build the folders, and then install any additional dependencies that you need. There we go. Now, I liked walking through this again because last time we quickly went over how to create projects with Expo. So once it finishes installing and building your project, it's going to walk you through some different steps here to actually start your project or work with it. So you first need to actually go into the folder because you're still in your workspace. So we'll go into CD sample app. Now you can use the npm, you can use the node commands to start this, or you can use Expo. Now, before I do that, I'm going to type code dot so that we can actually work with our project code in Visual Studios. Well, that opens up. I'm going to also follow up with this command with Expo start. And what this is going to do is this is going to start our native our React Native application. Okay, it started the development tools. So here again, we have our QR code. We can take a picture of that with our phone and load our app on our phone. We could also share this URL to our Expo apps on our devices. Now, if everything is working hunky-dory on our systems with Android, we can kick off Android, we can kick off iOS, and we can kick off web. Now, because Big Sur has a major update, Android is still not running friendly on my Mac right now. I need to get the Linux or the ARM emulator set for the Android application, the simulators to essentially kick off. So I won't be able to do Android today. Instead, I'm going to show you two different versions of iOS. So we'll start the first one, just hit I. And this one's going to open a iPhone 8. It's going to install Expo, and then it's going to start the project. Right, now it's running. Now, if I hit question, or if I do question mark, it gives me the list of all the commands again. Now, we want to test this on two different simulators. So we have the iPhone 8 without the notch, and I want to select an iOS emulator that actually contains the notch at the top. So I can do Shift I, and I can go down here to iPhone 12, and it will start up a second simulator running iPhone 12. And as you can see here, now we have that annoying little notch that Apple introduced with the iPhone 12. And I'm showing this because once we start playing around with the components, you're going to see that there's some things we need to watch out for when we use certain views on different devices. And lastly, if you want to actually debug the application or actually look at the developer tools, you can do Shift D to toggle opening the developer tools on startup, which is currently disabled. And then you can open the developer tools by pressing D. And this opens up our emulator here that essentially gives you a browser version of what we see in the console. All right, so we have our applications running. So let's go into Visual Studio Code. Oh, one other thing. If you go to this link, this gives you a list of all the components that you can get or that you can use for React Native. Now, we're not going to cover all of these today, but we are going to highlight pretty much the ones you're going to use the most. All right, go back in Xcode here. So here, if we go under our app.js, now this is the main component of our Expo app where the main screen, the first screen, is loaded. Now, in order for us to use any of the React Native components, we need to make sure that we import them. So here, by default, it's going to start you with a simple page called Style Sheet, Text, and View. So it's going to contain 3 components, and we're importing them from React Native. We're also going to have to import React from the React libraries. And it also is including the status bar for the Expo status bar. Now, for your applications, you may not need this one if you're not running an Expo. But if you are running an Expo, this here will give you the little status bar down here if the application is running, connected, or has any problems. Now, the other thing is it created a sample style sheet for us. Now, we'll come back to this in a minute, but just know that this is where some of the styling information is contained for our application. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is this view component. So views are a container that supports different layouts with flexbox, style, some touch handling, and access controls. Our view is a basic building block of our UI. It's essentially a small rectangular element on the screen, which can be used to display text, images, or respond to users' input. Even the smallest visual element of an app, like a line of text or a button, are kinds of views. Also, some kinds of views can contain other views. Now, if we think of views, if we go back to the slide here, view is essentially a div in HTML. And divs are just a placement container or a holder container where we can put a whole bunch of different elements inside of it and build out our application. So it's a good little component for grouping or layering out of children. So if we look at this, we can do a simple view. And as I make the changes, we see it real time. So we have view. Now, if we go inside of view and hit Control Space, we get a list of all the different attributes that we can attach to a view. Now, I'm not going to go into all these today, but these are just some of the ones that you can actually get in and actually play around with. Now, if we want to add some style, we can use the style attribute followed by equal, and it requires these curly brackets. And let's just say we want to change the background color of our view. So we'll do an inline style right now. This is similar to what you can do inside of HTML. So we'll do style. We'll use background color. And colon. And let's make it blue. Save. All right, let's also add some dimensions to our view. So let's also add a height. And let's say 100 pixels. And then let's also add a width. And let's give it 20 pixels. And there's our bar. So here's our view. Let's make that a little bit wider. Let's make it 100. Off, 1,000. Yeah, that's way too big. There we go. All right, so as you can see, we now have a view, but if you notice, our view is also being displayed behind the status bar. So it's being displayed at the topmost section of the application. Well, we really don't want that because we want all of our information or all of our view to be displayed. So the alternative to a view for iOS is to use something called SafeView or SafeAreaView. So if we type SafeAreaView, now here's the cool part. In Visual Code, if you use the little helper tool here, when you select a component that is not in your import list, it will automatically import it for you. That way you don't have to constantly remember that you have to import it. Wrap this around our view, save. And just by doing that, just by wrapping our view in a safe area view, all of a sudden our view, on iOS at least, is now below the status bar. So we didn't have to do any additional styling to make our view visible. So the safe area view component is used to render the content within the safe area boundaries of your device. Now, it's currently only applies to iOS devices with iOS versions 11 or later. Now, the safe area view renders nested content and automatically applies the padding to reflect the portion of the view that is not covered by the navigation bars, tab bars, toolbars, and other ancestor views. So, moreover, the most importantly, the safe area padding reflects the physical limitations of the screen, such as the rounded corners or camera notches, essentially the sensor housing area of the iPhone X. Now, another view we can add is a scroll view. Take our safe area view, we can add a scroll view. And I want to wrap that around our main view. And what this does is it allows us to actually scroll our view up and down. Now you can't really see it much, but it's kind of shrinking here. So if I click inside of my view, I can move it up and down. Now this is useful when you have a view that has multiple components that cannot all be displayed in one section. And then that allows the users to press and slide the view up or down. So the scroll view is the generic scrolling container that can contain multiple components and views. So we could actually throw in a couple of views here. If I take view, add two more views, change that one to red, one to yellow, save. So we now have three views. Now, if you notice, you can now see that I'm able to scroll the whole view up and down. Now, if I added an additional scroll view, let's just do this, we'll copy the whole section here. So if I take a second one, and let's change this one to be green, black, purple. So if I click on the top view, I can scroll it up and down, does not impact the second scroll view, and then I can click the second scroll view and scroll up and down.